"Where's my question?" she demanded. I hesitated, unsure as to how she would respond to my request. "I was wondering, Auri, would you mind showing me the Underthing?" Auri looked away, suddenly shy. "Quoth I thought you were a gentleman," she said, tugging self-consciously at her ragged shirt. "Imagine asking to see a girl's Underthing." She looked down, her hair hiding her face. I held my breath for a moment, choosing my next words carefully lest I startle her back underground. While I was thinking, Auri peeked at me through the curtain of her hair. "Auri?" I asked slowly. "Are you joking with me?" She looked up and grinned. "Yes, I am," she said proudly. "Isn't it wonderful?" Auri took me through the heavy metal grate in the abandoned courtyard, down into the Underthing. I brought out my hand lamp to light the way. Auri had a light of her own, something she held in her cupped hands that gave off a soft blue-green glow. I was curious about what she held, but didn't want to press her for too many secrets at once. At first, the Underthing was exactly what I had expected. Tunnels and pipes for sewage, water, steam, and coal gas. Great black pig-iron pipes a man could crawl through, small, bright brass pipes no bigger around than your thumb. There was a vast network of stone tunnels branching and connecting at odd angles. If there were any rhyme or reason to the place, it was lost on me. Auri gave me a whirlwind tour, proud as a new mother, excited as a little girl. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I soon lost myself in the excitement of the moment, ignoring my original reasons for wanting to explore the tunnels. There is nothing quite so delightfully mysterious as a secret in your own backyard. We made our way down 3 spiral staircases made of black wrought iron to reach the Grey 12. It was like standing in the bottom of a canyon. Looking up, I could see faint moonlight filtering in through drain grates far overhead. The mother owl was gone, but Auri showed me the nest. The deeper we went, the stranger things became. The round tunnels for drainage and pipes disappeared and were replaced with squared-off hallways and stairways strewn with rubble. Rotting wooden doors hung off rusted hinges, and there were half-collapsed rooms filled with mouldering tables and chairs. One room had a pair of bricked-up windows, despite the fact that we were, at my best guess, at least 50 feet below ground. Deeper still, we came to Through Bottom, a room like a cathedral, so big that neither Auri's blue light nor my red one reached the highest peaks of the ceiling. All around us were huge, ancient machines. Some lay in pieces, broken gears taller than a man, leather straps gone brittle with age, great wooden beams that were now explosions of white fungus, huge as hedgerows. Other machines were intact, but worn by centuries of neglect. I approached an iron block as big as a farmer's cottage, and broke off a single flake of rust large as a dinner plate. Underneath was nothing but more rust. Nearby there were 3 great pillars, covered in green verdigris, so thick it looked like moss. Many of the huge machines were beyond identifying, looking more melted than rusted. But I saw something that might have been a water wheel, 3 stories tall, lying in a dry canal that ran like a chasm through the middle of the room. I had only the vaguest of ideas as to what any of the machines might have done. I had no guess at all as to why they had lain here for uncounted centuries, deep underground. Every night I went exploring underground with Auri. I saw many interesting things, some of which may bear mentioning later, but for now suffice to say that she showed me all the vast and varied corners of the Underthing. She took me to Downings, vaults, the woods, delving, cricklet, tenors, candlebear. The names she gave them, nonsensical at first, fit like a glove when I finally saw what they described. The woods didn't resemble a forest in any way. It was just a series of crumbling halls and rooms where ceilings were propped up with thick wooden support beams. Cricklet had a tiny trickle of fresh water running down one wall. The moisture attracted crickets, who filled the long, low room with their tiny songs. Vaults was a narrow hallway with 3 deep cracks running across the floor. I only understood the name after watching Aori jump all 3 in quick succession to make it to the other end. It was several days before Aori took me to Below's, a maze of intersecting tunnels. Despite the fact that we were at least 100 feet below ground, they were filled with a steady, rushing wind that smelled of dust and leather. The wind was the clue I needed. It let me know I was close to finding what I'd come here looking for. Still, it bothered me that I didn't understand the name of this place. I knew I must be missing something. "Why do you call this Below's?" I asked Aori. "That's its name," she said easily. The wind made her fine hair stream out behind her like a gauzy pennant. "You call things by their names. That's what names are for." I smiled, despite myself. "Why does it have that name? Isn't everything here below?" She turned to look at me, head cocked to one side. Her hair blew around her face, and she brushed it back with her hands. "It's not Below's," she said. "It's Below's." I couldn't hear the distinction. "Blows?" I asked, puffing out my cheeks as if blowing out air. Aori laughed, delighted. "That's a piece," she grinned. "Try for more." I tried to think of what else made sense. Bellows? I made a gesture with both arms as if working a forge bellows. Aori thought about that for a moment, looking up and tilting her head back and forth. "That's not as good. This is a quiet place." She reached out a small hand and took hold of the edge of my cloak, pulling it out to the side so the slow wind caught it, filling it like a sail. Aori looked up at me, grinning as if she'd done a magic trick. "Billows, of course," I grinned back, laughing. That minor mystery put to rest, Aori and I began a meticulous investigation of Billows. After several hours, I began to get a feel for the place, an understanding of which way I needed to go. It was just a matter of finding the tunnel that led there. It was maddening. The tunnels twisted, leading in wide, unhelpful detours. Those rare times when I found a tunnel that stayed true to its course, the way was blocked. Several passages turned straight up or straight down, leaving me with no way to follow them. One passage had thick iron bars driven deep into the surrounding stone, blocking the way. Another grew steadily narrower until it was barely a handspan across. A third ended with a cave-in of tangled wood and soil. After days of searching, we finally found an ancient mouldering door. The damp wood crumbled to pieces when I tried to open it. Aori wrinkled her nose and shook her head. "I'll skin my knees." Shining my sympathy lamp past the ruined door, I saw what she meant. The room beyond slanted down until the ceiling was only 3 feet high. "Will you wait for me?" I asked her as I took off my cloak and cuffed up my shirt sleeves. "I don't know if I can find my way up to the top without you." Aori nodded, looking worried. "Ins are easier than outs, you know. There's tight places you can get stuck." I was trying not to think of that. "I'm just going for a look. I'll be back in half an hour." She cocked her head. "What if you're not?" I smiled. "You'll have to come and rescue me." She nodded, her face as solemn as an earnest child. I put my sympathy lamp in my mouth, shining the red light out against the pitch blackness in front of me. Then I got down on all fours and headed forward, my knees rubbing against the rough stone of the floor. After several turnings, the ceiling went lower still, too low for crawling. After a long moment of consideration, I dropped to my belly and pressed on, pushing my lamp ahead of me. Each twist of my body pulled at the rows of stitches all across my back. If you have never been deep underground, I doubt you can understand what it is like. The darkness is absolute, almost tangible. It lurks outside the light, waiting to rush in like a sudden flood. The air is still and stale. There's no noise except what you make yourself. Your breathing becomes loud in your own ears. Your heart thumps, and all the while there is the overwhelming knowledge that thousands of tons of earth and stone are pressing down above you. Still, I continued to worm my way ahead, moving by inches. My hands were grimy, and sweat dripped into my eyes. The crawlway grew smaller yet, and I foolishly let one of my arms get pinned to my side. Cold sweat burst out across my whole body as I panicked. I struggled, trying to get it stretched out in front of me. After several terrifying minutes, I managed to get my arm free. Then, after lying there for a moment, trembling in the dark, I pressed ahead and found what I'd been looking for.